Hi, and welcome to the Metaphysical Reality Podcast. My name is Dana Plant, and I'm your host. So welcome to a paradigm shift where creative genius, innovation, and inner technology are communicated. You're invited to explore the quantum fields where multidimensional revelations are revealed. Enjoy the conversations of lightworkers, way showers, healers, mystics, teachers, and scientists as they share their discoveries and metaphysical realities. And so we've entered the Aquarian age, and there's never been a better time to explore all these different metaphysics that have really been kind of poo-pooed, since the beginning of time. We've been completely sabotaged, but now with this December 21st activation of a 0 degrees Aquarius, astrologically, this is like the new age. And so all of these technologies, such as the sound healing that we're going to discuss today, is really going to be in the forefront. So I'd like to just go over the mission statement is to explore this multidimensional aspects of consciousness, vibrational medicine, technologies that invoke spiritual awakening. And so our goal is to awaken, educate, inspire, and pave the way for living from a conscious, heart-centered, holistic lifestyle. So I'd just like to give a short little disclaimer as well that please be advised that the content on the Metaphysical Reality Podcast is for personal, spiritual self-exploration and entertainment purposes only, and are not in any way meant to diagnose, treat, or cure any medical or psychiatric conditions, nor replace care provided by a licensed healthcare professional. So with all that said, I'm really excited to introduce my guest today, Ted Winslow. And Ted Winslow is an award-winning producer and best-selling recording artist with over 25 years experience in the music business. Ted holds a BS in music and audio engineering from the University of Colorado and currently owns a state-of-the-art commercial recording studio. Ted is also involved in extensive sound healing research through biophotonic imaging testing, where he works with the effects of sound on the human energy field, which has validated and trademarked the sound healing technology that we're going to talk about today, SoundSyncTech. And Ted has created specialized brainwave frequency music to facilitate a more powerful and effective hypnosis session developed exclusively for Wellpoint Hypnosis Method through SoundSyncTech. Welcome, Ted. I'm so excited to talk to you today. How's it going?
It's going fantastic, Dana. Thank you so much for having me on. And to quote the great Ringo Starr, love and peace, you all. Happy winter solstice.
Happy winter solstice. There's never been a better time to introduce people to SoundSyncTech, especially given the conditions that we're under right now. And I know that for me personally, since I have discovered it, and I've been a sound healing student for over 25 years, that you don't even have to believe in it for it to work, correct? I mean, you just put on the SoundSyncTech music and it just really has the ability, based on how you've created it through your experience, to just really calm the nervous system and bring us back into like a state of coherence. And so that's what I'm really excited to talk to you about today. But before we get into all of that, I want to know what your background is in the music. Like, how old were you when you first started getting into music? Like, I picture you like 3 or 4 years old with a guitar in your hand,
I wish I could say that was it, but no, I think it was more like around 5th grade I got into percussion. And then a couple of years later, I got into guitar and loved playing the guitar. A year later, I was about 16, 17, I started getting into the bass guitar and found out that they kind of really went hand in hand, though they were two complete different instruments. And then started picking up the piano. We always had a piano around the house. And I knew that the foundation, in my opinion, for music was coming from the piano, and got into composition towards the end of my high school career, as well as singing. So I was playing in some bands that were being underage, and we were playing clubs, and realized that to keep a good place in a competitive market, I had to not only know how to play 1 to 2 instruments, but had to be able to croak a tune out. From there, it led me to go to college, and I was studying music and also working as a studio musician at the time, and playing in an original band where we were looking to get signed from a record contract. And it dawned on me as a studio musician, being on one side of the glass and looking at the guys on the other side that were on the mixing consoles and the tape machines. I'm dating myself now. and that I wanted to learn where that was. And so quickly changed universities and went over to the University of Colorado. They had one of the top 3 programs at the time for our audio engineering and technical engineering, and started out with music from there. And from there, it's just kind of spiraled and taken off and kept going and going and going to where it is today, where I'm at today.
Well, it's, really amazing, because I don't think there's anybody on the planet that has that kind of a background that's doing what you're doing with the SoundSyncTech, because you have to have the audio engineering background. And I don't know, like, if there's other like different frequency type of music that's out there that doesn't have that background, that like for the mixing and then the correct way to format it and then to put it out so that you're actually having the healing experience with the sound frequencies.
Correct. And that it does go hand in hand. They're 2 different animals, and that was kind of like the beauty of it, that when I realized, okay, you think about it, everything that we play with is in the tuning of what's called 440. Well, it's called standard tuning, but 440 is the frequency we tune to. And what that basically means is that if I fly, say, over to Australia, and I'm going to sit down and play with their orchestra, I'm going to pull my guitar out, we're all going to tune to that frequency. And I learned back then that was a pretty dissonant frequency, and that tuning in of itself. And I've got some stories of that that's pretty interesting as well. And when I altered the tuning, I was having profound effects. And so I was feeling these different, not profound, but I was feeling different effects. It was completely changing the way that I was. So, for example, I'd be playing a show sometimes, and when you get off of a show with 100-watt amplifiers back in the 80s and the 90s, and I'd get off at stage at like midnight, how do you relax? How do you bring yourself back down? How do you calm? And so that's where I would start playing with some of the frequencies. So fast forward a little bit later, I meet my wife, and she's big into metaphysics, and she is playing sound healing. And I'm listening to it, and I'm like, so this is sound healing? She's like, yeah. And I'm like, being a multi-instrument musician, I'm listening to it, and I'm like, that sounds like really, really bad elevator music. I can do something completely better than that. And so she like looks at me, she's like, yeah, okay, well, put your money where your mouth is and let's see what you come up with. So the easiest frequency I started from there was 528, and which is the key of love. It's also repairs DNA. And that's where it started. I'm like, hey, there's really a lot to this. And that was the start, really, that song, 528, was the start of my career.
Don't they call that 528 as like the God frequency? I think I've heard it like described that way, as the God frequency. So basically what you're saying is that growing up, all the music that we listened to was like in a discordant frequency of 440. Right?
Correct.
Even though we love the music and, the lyrics and all of that. So I'm just wondering, and I was reading some stuff earlier about, like energy healing and the Rife technology, and how he got sabotaged basically from the, doing the frequency energies. And I feel like in a way that there, we've been kind of, I don't know if sabotage is the right word, but
brainwashed.
Well, yeah, and so, that's another thing. There's that brings me to a couple more questions. But the first question that I want to ask about this, so what do they call this genre? You know, do they call it sound healing? Do they call it ambient music? And do they call it new age? Like what category does that fit in now?
That's a phenomenal question. I think that we need to start a movement to figure out how we can do it. I call it frequency sound healing,
I think
because
that's a really good description of it, because that's exactly what it is.
you know, sound healing, you can be playing a drum. I've got oh, I can't grab it from here with this headset, but I've got a medicine drum that was given to me by a Cherokee medicine elder, and it went through 7 days of ceremony. And
Mm-hmm.
that to me is a sound healing instrument.
Mm-hmm.
Though it may have vary in some pitches and timbres, it's made out of a buffalo skin.
Mm-hmm.
You know, that can be sound healing. But when you're dealing with frequency, we're all oscillatory beings. We're all made up of really kind of different frequencies and yet the same frequency. So I like to call it frequency sound healing because that's what we're doing. Anytime
Mm-hmm.
someone goes on and sees my my catalog of music, and like I'll get asked a question frequently, is I'm feeling this. What frequency would you see? And for those who aren't familiar with me, all my songs will have a title and they're going to have a hertz. It's the end of it. The hertz is the measurement of that energy of which that song is portraying. So I'm going to jump around here, so hang on with me
Yeah,
here
that's
for it.
cool. Thanks.
We're going for a ride here. But as our bodies are made up of about 70-75% water, you know, we're going to be able to entrain ourselves with what those frequencies are. So we were speaking a little bit earlier about what is this? Well, the 440 that we were talking about, there's two things that kind of come with that as a dissonant frequency. Third Reich minister, individual by the name of Joseph Goebbels, came before World War II, so 1940s, probably the late 1938s. And he got in front of all these great minds of music. And you got to think that the centers of influence that were coming out were like Italy, Vienna. And we're going to come back to Vienna here in a second. United States, London, you have France, Spain. And so all these, you know, epicenters of music and kind of talking how do we get together. And he's like, it's of utmost importance, this is Joseph Goebbels, that we do the music in 440. And so everybody's like, okay, 440 it is. We're going to go ahead and play everything in 440. Here's this dissonant frequency, right? And I'm like, that's crazy that the greatest ears were like, okay, we're going to go ahead and make it that. We know that Haydn, who's a classical composer, Bach, Mozart, they were all experimenting with all these tempered tunings and alternate tunings. I mean, they date way back. And here we land at 440. Okay. Is it conspiracy theory that we're at that? World War II breaks out, whatnot. Today's day and age, our military uses it, that frequency. They have a whole separate department that I won't go into that, but they'll use that for weaponization, so to speak. So individual who's a Grammy award winning, he's got something like 8, 9, 10 Grammys. Phenomenal guitar player by the name of Steve Lukather. Steve Lukather is the guitar player for Toto. He is asked to do a film score, and this was about the 1980s, I want to say. And so he does a film score as a side project, and he hires the Vienna Philharmonic Orchestra. And he goes over to Vienna and he plays what he has written out from guitar pieces and all that so that the orchestra can start to play along with it. And it's out of tune. And he can't figure out what's going on. Finally, it dawns on him. He says, "Have you guys tuned to 440?" And the conductor's like, "No, we don't tune to 440." He goes, "This is written in 440. Will you tune to 440?" Right? And keep in mind, Joseph Goebbels' utmost importance, and yet, you know, Vienna, and they're like, "No, we won't." So he had to record them, take the music back to the States, re-record his parts to put that in there. So
Wow.
it's kind of a crazy concept in my mind. Does it mean
Well,
anything?
you know, I was going to ask you too. I mean, since you kind of touched on it, that was one of my questions is about this. You know, sound can be used for healing, but it can also be used as a weapon. And
Yeah.
you know, recently they had that whole thing that went down in Israel and Cuba with the embassy people, that they were actually attacked by sound. frequencies. I don't know if you heard about that, but it was pretty bad, and the police are using it as weapons. It's like for protesters and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So I know that this is the era that we're living in this, and the whole point of like having something like SoundSyncTech is that we can actually use the healing frequencies as a preventative medicine in a way to keep our frequencies in a higher state, just like the other things, like yoga and meditation and essential oils and all of these vibratory, like I call it medicines of light, because we want to be able to really keep our energy in alignment and really clear. So, I think that we're being bombarded with not only like discordant energies and frequencies, but, just the whole thing around all the fear on the planet. And
Yeah.
so one of the easiest things to do, and it's funny because I was thinking of you this morning about, doing the interview, and I thought, you're going to laugh. I thought, Ted needs to have a superhero, like cartoon character with your logo, on the uniform, like a Superman, because it is the easiest thing and the most effortless thing that we can do is start listening to these sound sync tech frequencies so that we can just keep ourselves in a state of calm, because like they were saying, we've always heard diet, rest, exercise, and I would add SoundSyncTech to that like combination, because if people aren't sleeping and then they're not in a restful state. And I think too, even if you can't get to sleep, that if you're just listening to the SoundSyncTech music, that you're going to be in a relaxed state, and it's going to have a good effect on you, like as if you had gotten a good night's sleep as well. So I feel like there's just really a lot of healing, especially right now when there's so many people that are having like epidemic of like this mental, stress, and the suicide levels are really
Yeah.
high, and all of that. So I'm excited about like coming into this age of Aquarius, and where we are going to see more technologies, but this is probably the most easiest thing that a person can do, is just listen to your SoundSyncTech music. So the other thing that I wanted to talk about was like, okay, so we're listening to the SoundSyncTech music, and so we can apply our breath with it. We can apply visualizations. And it kind of struck me because like I made a complete playlist that I have just going. I wake up every morning with SoundSyncTech, and I go to bed every night with it, because I want to make sure, especially because I live in a really tiny apartment and I have all this electromagnetic field energy from my router and all that kind of stuff, so I feel like just having that music on in my environment, I have a water fountain behind me that's going to pick up, and it's going to transmit that, the beneficial energies. And so I guess what I'm really kind of getting at is that this is one of the easiest things that we can do to just submerge ourselves into this music. So I was just also wondering, it was kind of cool, like get into a little bit about how you create, the different things. Like I said, I have a playlist, and I'm always struck by like the different names of everything. And I thought, wow, I could just like take this name, manifestation, play this track, and then sit there and do like, some breathing and do a visualization or what, you can take anything and apply it in a conscious way, through intention, and have some really beneficial results.
Oh yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Um, I, with the frequencies, I kind of look at it as kind of like color therapy. There's a lot
Mm,
that you kind of said there that I kind of want to kind of grab real quick
mm-hmm,
too.
mm-hmm,
Because if you think of like the frequencies that we're all dealing with color therapy, interesting enough that there's what, red, yellow, blue, violet, orange, indigo, and green. Okay, and there's 7 colors that are out of there. There's 7 notes, really, so to speak, in a scale. If you're talking, I mean, there's many scales, but the foundation of music, realize there's 7 points of energy that we have inside of them. So that's all pretty much related. When I was dealing with the music and working with clients, I wanted it to show up in a matter of minutes, because as I was trying to go through, as we all go soul searching, and I'd be talking to these great people in the industry, and they're like, you need to sit down, Ted, and you must meditate for 90 minutes. And I'm like, man, I don't have 90 minutes. I would love to, but I cannot. How do I get myself back to that? And I'm like, oh, I'm an engineer. I know that sound is frequency. We are frequency. The universe is made up on frequency waves. We're all energy. Frequency is energy, so to speak. How can I put this to good use? And so by changing those and working with them, we could see them show up in a matter of minutes. So people who had anxiety and tension are now recalibrating their field. Okay, what does that mean? Well, you get up in the morning, the first thing you probably hear is your alarm going off. This loud, obnoxious sound. That's not something great to wake up to. I get we can put music on and all that stuff. You go downstairs, you've got the microwave running to heat up whatever you're going to eat as you're trying to fly out the door. The news is on. I don't even need to go into that. All the news that you're listening to, the background commercials are on 440. They're sitting there yelling at you, you need to buy this prescription to help your health or you're going to have a problem. You need this bank to help you with your finances, this insurance policy, or you're not going to be able to survive without of it. You know, now we've got this fear that's coming in. We're losing our soul key signature that is truly uniquely us. Holes are coming into our energy field. And I show this with some of the data on my website. Someone who has not listened to my music and has had a day like that, and all of a sudden comes in, and 6 minutes later, you could see their energy field just starting to feel back in. They're now recalibrating their soul signature. They're tapping into their higher self with this music. They're sleeping at night. So all that stuff that happens, you come back and you listen to the music and you zone out. And it's by design to so that you're not thinking. You don't have, I call it monkey mind, right? You sit there and you're trying to go to bed and you're like, okay, did I turn this off? Did I turn that off? Oh, I've got to do this project tomorrow. I've got to do that. Oh my gosh, what assignment was this? Was supposed to be, oh, I need to fix this problem. And it's like, no, turn it off. It's time to come back out. That will be tomorrow. Let's go ahead and wash ourselves in these healing frequencies and bring ourselves back to that state of well-being.
Well, it's really a state of coherent energy, right? Everything's vibrating at different frequencies. And then when we can get into a coherent place, especially with the heart and the mind, you know, then we're at a place of presence, really. And like, I love what you said about the soul signature. You know, I think that's really what we're striving for, is to really be that, you know, be that authentic soul signature self. And that's what I love about the SoundSyncTech, because it does bring you there really, really quickly. So let's see, what else?
I got a quick quote here.
Okay.
Because we talk about science, right? And so for music is literally a science. Engineering is a whole nother science. And you think one of the greatest scientists of all of our time was Albert Einstein. And I think it was 1905, he discovered the law of vibration, frequency. And it's a law of nature that states that nothing rests, everything moves, everything vibrates. And it's the difference between manifestations of the physical, mental, emotional, and spiritual results simply from the different levels of vibrating energy or frequency. Bad energy, bad frequencies are going to bring in the bad to you. High vibrations and love, the highest vibration of all, we're going to be able to attract that. And it's infectious.
It is. I agree. So let's talk a little bit about your measurement device. Like you have some technology that you use that you can scan like the room, and or you can use this technology to do a before and after if somebody's had an experience with the SoundSyncTech. Or tell me about that biophotonic testing that you do.
biophotonic imaging. So what biophotonic imaging is it's the convergence of the photonics in life sciences. And it's a technology of generation, manipulation, and detection of light. So it uses photons, and it's quantum-like particles of light instead of electrons to transmit and process the stored information. So I'm basically using this electronic method, electrophotonic, try to say that about 5 times, electrophotonic imaging method to bridge the gap between local Western science and intuitive sciences such as the Orient and the principles of Chinese medicine, because it will take all of that. The inventor, I had the opportunity to be meeting with one of the inventors of this, Dr. Konstantin Kurakov,
I
and
met him
he,
too, actually. Yeah,
right,
yeah.
great
I
guy.
met the guy. Yeah.
Yes, very interesting. Yes, that's good, Ted. I see that.
Yeah.
Right. Good information. Please send it to me. And so he realized what it was doing with music, and was here in Colorado. I'm in Colorado, and he was up here at one of the local television stations, and I got to go meet him. He knew I was in the area. I got to meet with him. We talked about technology. Long story short, I get contracted by a company, and he sends out his chief engineer from Russia, and we meet out someplace in Ohio, and we start working with all of these devices, with calibrating them and playing with them, and what they're tweaking them and getting them all ready and stuff, and got to run all these tests. And so so now what does that mean is that I was speaking earlier, like for example, I'll give an example of this. I had an individual, and I came out with a vocal toning album, another sound healing device that's our own voice and soul signature to ourselves. We can use it every day. So I wanted to show some of these clients how to vocal tone so that they could do that themselves. Big rage is crystal bowls. So some of those crystal bowls that you use can be thousands of dollars, right? So that's where I'm like, vocal toning, that's all of ours. Here's how you can vocal tone. Client comes in, I run a baseline on her to see, where she's at, and she didn't realize that she was going to have to sing. And so you could see the stress level start to come up. She's like, Ted, I don't like singing. And I'm like, oh, I've kind of blown this test. Let's just go ahead and go along with it. So I put headphones on her, put a microphone on it, start playing one of my tracks, Angelic Sound Healing, that you can sing along with. And she's like, I don't sing with it. I can't do it. I hate my boss. I can't stand this. My day has been hard. She's all of a sudden singing these negative words, right? And going on with this, I can't stand singing. I hate my voice. My boss is terrible. And so we went through 2 songs, and I went back and ran another bass with her. And already she has relaxed. Already the music is, and you could see this through biophotonic imaging. It was a way to be able to scientifically get a reading on somebody, show where their energy field is, go back and apply this with the music, let them listen to frequencies, so that now they can not only feel the difference, I feel the difference, and as most people do, they get to scientifically see how it's changed their levels. And I've got that information and videos of that on my website at tedwinslow.com.
Perfect. So I encourage everybody to go check that out. And, I'm glad that you brought that up, because I was talking to my mom the other day on the phone, and she was saying that she just didn't feel the Christmas spirit this year, obviously,
Yeah.
But then afterwards I started thinking, I was like, you know what? Every year she was always like the organist of the church, all the different religions, like all my whole growing up days. So my mom, was very much a part of, especially Christmas time, and as of late, she's always been in the choir. And I realized she's not singing. That's why she doesn't feel the Christmas spirit. It's like she's not singing. And I'm starting to pay a little bit more attention to the, like, especially because you were kind of a catalyst for it as I started going more deeper into your work. And I realized when I was a little kid, I sang in the choir, and I don't really feel particularly like I feel like I'm a better dancer than I am a singer, but but I really feel like there is a lot of power in our voice, and to do the vocal toning, you know, that you teach. And so I'm going to dive in a little bit deeper into that. I did a yoga class, and I'm kind of a snob, but it was a substitute, but I took the class anyway. And she did vocal toning with the chakras, with the yoga poses.
Oh,
And
that's
I was
cool.
like, now that's what we're talking about, right? You know, it's we're really opening ourselves up. And so did you want to say anything more about the vocal toning and the training that you're doing? Because I just think it's phenomenal.
You know, it's pretty simple. I've got solfeggio frequencies and then angelic frequencies that are out there for people to be able to vocal tone too. Because, you know, when I did my Amazon bestseller, Angelic Sound Healing, I thought, how cool would that be if we could actually sing along with those vibrations, and what would that be like if we could do that ourselves? And sometimes I notice that in my years of singing, I can just go ahead and get the pitch, and I'll be walking along and start humming along with whatever that frequency is. And so that was kind of where I started with that, is basing that album after my Amazon bestseller, Angelic Sound Healing. It's there. I've got them out on iTunes, Amazon. I think you can even get it on YouTube, Spotify, and my website. But those who are interested, there's introduction tracks. I won't take up our time on I know that we're limited with it, but I've got introduction tracks that really tell you how to get into vocal toning, what that's about. And then you've got all these that you get to play with. So that's where that kind of originated from, for helping people out, because I was walking through a trade show and I heard a crystal bowl when I was first starting out in this. And I'm like, that's the most beautiful sound I've ever heard. And I followed it and talked to the guy, looked at the price of these. And of course, being a musician, I had to get a crystal bowl in every key, you know,
Right.
every note that there was. And really, I wasn't sure if he even knew what 528 was at that time, of these 440s. What are they basing the notes on? And so that was one of the things I had a problem with, the crystal bowls. So I do have my own crystal bowls tuned, so to speak. And I mean, I've even got a harmonium that's tuned to 432.
I was going to ask you about that, if you had a harmonium as well, you know.
Yeah. In fact, I've got a vocal toning thing on YouTube. I forgot about this. I'm glad you said it. I've got a vocal toning on YouTube where it's 432 with the harmonium, that people can use that, or they can find one of my albums to tune to those frequencies with.
That's so cool. I just think it's so freeing that it's an easy thing that we can do. And I know for a lot of us, especially for me, I went through a big life upside down change in the last couple of years, and it took me a long time to like find my voice and speak my truth, you know. And now that I've done that, it's so liberating. But there's like, okay, that's just the beginning. Now I can really do this vocal training and just become more empowered, even more empowered, you know, and build more confidence in myself. And I mean, I just feel like, especially with this, like everybody, I don't think anybody should be bored like during this time out, you know. I mean, I'm using it as a spiritual sanctuary, spa, you know, kind of thing. And I'm diving in. I don't know if you can see the keyboard in the background. I played piano when I was young, and then my dad bought me a horse, and that was the end of that. So
horse keyboard.
you know, and I would always pick the horse. But you know, I remember when I quit piano lessons, my mom said, she goes, someday you're really going to be sorry. I'm just going to tell you, you're just really going to be sorry. And I'm like, no, I won't, you know. But I do feel like, I mean, it's never too late. So I've been doing YouTube, and I found I'm having an affair with Andy, the piano guy, you know, on YouTube, because he's a real easy guy to follow to kind of like get back into playing the keyboard. So one of the things that I know, this might sound like a really dumb question, but how do you know what key, like how do you tune things to a specific frequency? You know,
That's all what it has to deal with SoundSyncTech, because you have to take everything out of a tuning. Even to like guitars, these are stringed instruments, so you can't necessarily do them, so to speak, with a computer. Or
mm,
I'm not too keen on that. Yeah, you can, but there's tunings that deal with that. And so you have to have, there's a variety of ways, and that's why I developed SoundSyncTech. I will eventually put out a book on how this is all fit together and
mhm,
why I
mhm,
use it.
mhm.
But that's what made it proprietary, because
Right,
I knew that nobody was touching it. So I'm an independent record label. I don't want to be with a record company. I don't
right.
want them to own any rights of what this is that I'm putting out there. I've been blessed to be able to give this, the universe has blessed me to play all the instruments, understand how to tune them. I've got drums right over there. You got to tune the drums too. That's a skin.
Mhm,
Each
mhm,
one has to go along with it. So there's a certain method that I have with it to make it all uniform. Now, as soon as you go with that frequency, there's more things that's going into this as
mhm,
well as just that tuning, because that tuning, I'm going to go ahead and use 432. 432 is going to be A. It is the universe. It's not F. It's not G. It
mhm,
is A. 528 is C. Okay. So 432 is in the key of A. Now I will do a 432 tuning with all the instruments. Now, part of the SoundSyncTech method is that I'm putting in binaural beats. So I'm putting in theta frequencies or
mm,
alpha
mhm.
frequencies. I'm the first one that's been able to put in theta and alpha frequencies. Wellpoint Hypnosis, we're putting in delta frequencies because there's an importance why we want to have delta to go into that. Now, there's a whole separate tuning that's going to go with a theta, an alpha, a delta,
Mhm, mhm,
a gamma. We're speaking in beta for those who are people wondering where they are, and I can talk a little bit more about that. That has to go with it to fit with that composition, and it's working both sides of the brain.
mhm, mhm.
And that's where we're seeing, that's the effect that's coming in. Not only the frequency, we're using binaural beats to go inside this whole thing too.
I know, you know, I've never experienced anything like this before. I can physically feel it, you know, and I can also like emotionally, you know, I don't know, there, it's just such a, it's such an amazing place, you know, to like come into this place of alignment and of center. And I'm starting to get more used to it. You know, I mean, I've always, you know, as an energy healer, I've always taken a lot of effort to make sure that I keep myself clear, you know, and all of that. But this just takes it to a whole nother level. So, I mean, I couldn't be more excited. And I do want to talk about Wellpoint because now I've discovered it. I've completed level 2 training. I'm working into level 3, and I had my first session, and I wanted to like just tell a little story about what happened in my session, because it was just so like it was so amazing, and it really correlates to another story with the SoundSyncTech. So basically what happened was I was asking a question about where is the knowledge. You know, I do destiny card readings, and I was really looking to see like where, you know, where's the knowledge, like where is that truth. And next thing I know, I popped into this scene where I was taken to this glacier. I don't know if it was off the planet or where it was, but that doesn't really matter. But I was taken to a glacier. And then in the middle of the glacier was this lake of this water. And it was the most beautiful color. Like, I don't even know if I've ever seen a color like that before. And it was like, and then it pulled me into it. And I just thought that that was really interesting because we're always seeking knowledge and we're trying to bring the knowledge like to us. But it pulled me into it. And it was basically the Akashic records. It was like, this is where the truth is. This is where the knowledge is. It's in this, like, it's in this water. And which is like just this vibration, right? So then fast forward, I had taken your wife's advice. She was like, well, have you ever taken a bath and listened to SoundSyncTech? I love doing that. And I was like, really? Oh, that sounds so cool. So the other day put my noise canceling headphones on, and I had my water, my bath with my essential oils and salts, and I was taking this really nice bath, and I was playing the SoundSyncTech, and the same exact thing happened. I wasn't really thinking about anything. I was just relaxing, and all of a sudden the music, the SoundSyncTech, pulled me into it. And it took me to this place of presence where there was no time. You know, there's no questions, there's no answers. You're just in this, you know, I would call it like the God place, you know. And it was just like the coolest thing, because I correlated it to like when I had my experience with Wellpoint. So I know that you've created, you know, like you were just saying about the delta, the frequencies, and I think it's the coolest thing that you're combining all of this stuff, and as an audio engineer, you're able to really master, you know, this effect, and to be able to utilize it with Wellpoint Hypnosis Method, that it really prepares the person to go on these journeys and to uncover and really, like, you know, I mean, maybe that place I went into, the glacier water, was my soul signature, you know, and that's kind of like what I felt like in the bathtub too, where I just felt like this place of just purity. And so, you know, I just feel like this is just such a gift, you know, to the world. And I bet you, when you were starting out, you know, and when you were in college and when you were studying, I bet you never thought in a million years that you would be like on the cusp of this paradigm shift on the planet that's actually helping humanity. I'm not, you know, I mean, I'm sincere. Like, this is the biggest gift to the world, that your life's work. And I feel like this is just the beginning, because I feel like this is going to help people wake up, but it's also going to connect, especially through Wellpoint Hypnosis, it's also going to connect them to those quantum realms, to their higher self. They're going to get the direct communication. And I mean, come on, you know.
That's my secret weapon right there, is doing that. You know, these realms that I have, I think like 20, this is terrible, I forgot how many are, like 20, 22, 23, 24 albums that are distributed worldwide. And that's a lot of music. So I write the music, I play the music, I record the music, I mix the music, and then I do a final processing that's called mastering, so that it goes out on Spotify a certain way. It's a whole nother engineering area on its own. iTunes is one thing, Spotify is another, CDs were another thing. And so that when I was going through doing, my wife is a master hypnotherapist. And so that's how I was able to get through writer's block. Now I got a funny story.
Okay.
So one of my sessions I'm going through with my wife, I was running through the fairy realm. Okay. And I was a fairy. She'll tell the story sometime, and she loves telling the story. I won't go into it because I don't tell it nearly as good as she does. But I come out of it, and here I'm hearing these weird stuff on like how I was in the fairy realm, and this and that and the colors. But what came out of that session was a whole album. And so I wrote the album, Frequency of the Fairies. Now here's the funny part. I'm an avid motorcycle rider. And so I've actually ridden my motorcycle from here in Colorado up to Alaska and back on a solo trip. So imagine I'm out with some of the guys, and we're doing a scoot up through the mountains here in the Colorado Rockies, and we're talking about what's the latest thing that we've done. And I'm like, you guys are going to love this thing. I just did an album called Frequency with the Fairies, and you could see these go, what? Frequency with the Fairies? And I'm like, yeah, you know, and sure enough, the next ride, they kind of come back, and they know really well what I do. And they're kind of coming back, and out of the corner, they're like, hey, that's pretty good. I like that. So, you know,
it takes a real man to admit it too, right?
It instantly changes you. We had and so with Wellpoint, we realized that this deep healing that we're doing is going to go deeper than alpha and theta. And if we've got time, I can let me explain a little bit about that. So theta, which most of my regular commercial albums are that be under Ted Winslow, is going to be 4 to 6 hertz in frequency. And this is the border of the conscious and the subconscious world. And it's in this state of consciousness that we're accessing and influencing the powerful subconscious parts of ourselves that is normally inaccessible to our waking mind, so to speak. And so when people are listening to frequency with the fairies, angelic sound healing, they're having optimal range of visualization. And mind programming using creative power of our mind is beginning. It's starting to take over on that. Like if you're taking a salt bath or out in nature, I'll go do spiritual hikes and spend a couple days in the Rockies just sleeping off of the ground and backpacking around through there. Wellpoint, we realized was a deeper aspect of it. And the cool thing about that is that we get people that come in, they're like, I can't go under in hypnosis. They're already programmed in their mind that they're not going to be able to go into hypnosis. Already know what I'm doing with the music. So I put in delta waves that are in these as well. And I sell them commercially as well on the market, but it's 4 hertz or less. It's going to be a deep, dreamless sleep where the body can heal and restore itself. So important. It's releasing anti-aging hormones that are including melatonin, HGH, DHEA, and it's the place of the deepest relaxation and the deepest healing, the deepest spiritual connection. So when we're going into these sessions, our clients are starting to listen to this, and it immediately takes down all the defenses. It immediately takes out of the programs that we have in the mind that allows us to go to these places, to seek this information, to heal ourselves from past life experiences that we might have had, to look into the future. What can we bring forward from here or from someplace else and use in this point in time? And that's how I've been continuously developing SoundSyncTech.
That's amazing. You just said something that that I wanted to touch on real quick. You said dreamless sleep. So are you saying that if you have a lot of dreams going on in your sleep, then that you're not really going into a restless? Because I don't ever remember my dreams. And I was wondering if there was a frequency or anything, any of the special music that you do that could bring that about. I don't know why I never remember my dreams. I don't really program myself at night before I go to bed to remember my dreams. I mean, I just kind of figured I must go really out and I must go really far. And, you know.
You could be tapping into from information that may not be able to come into this world that we're here, you know, that maybe it's not the right time, but you'll access it at a different point in time. I have the same thing too. I have another weird thing that's been happening with me as I'm doing this, is that I won't remember any dreams, but then I'll wake up in the middle, or I don't even really wake up. I'll have something saying, okay, you have to go in the studio today. This is what you're going to be working on, this type of an oscillator to create this type of a sound wave, and it's going to be filtered this direction, and you're going to use, you know, this low pass. And I'm like, wow, and it's right there. And then I go about my morning activities. I walk in the studio a couple hours later, and boom, it lays it right all out because it's been right there on the forefront of my mind, which has been a really cool thing. I never had that my whole life.
Right. So you're just downloading, you know, it's just coming to you, you know, and that's why I didn't put a lot of emphasis on it, like trying to remember my dreams or anything like that.
Yeah.
But there was something else I was going to ask about that. Oh, well.
You know, we can regenerate and heal ourselves through this process too, which is another huge aspect of it. So, and I've got tons of stories, but I like to give a personal one that I had myself. I was up in the mountains and backpacking around, and I tore my MCL, and I came down. The doctor, I looked at I went to the doctor. I couldn't walk. And I go to the doc, and he's kind of looking at it, says, we're going to do x-rays, but there's only one way to really kind of fix that, meaning surgery. And I said, well, doc, I'll tell you what, why don't I come back to you in six weeks if I got a problem with it? Because I know I really want to put this to the test on myself. And long story short time later, I'm up with my kids a couple months later, never went back to the doc, and we're climbing 14,000 foot peaks and going through waist deep of snow to reach the summit of Grays and Torreys here in Colorado. So it's amazing what you can do. It helps you sleep at night because you're getting rid of that negative energy. And that though if you dream or not dream, it's that rest state of
Mhm.
well-being that we're
Mhm.
letting our body regenerate. Traumatic
Right.
people
Right.
that suffered trauma use it for getting. I had a firefighter from 9/11 who was a ground zero for 15 days, and he just had horrific stuff going through and was on medication, wasn't interacting the way that he wanted to with family. Um, Called in and gave him angelic sound healing. And I want to give that
Mhm.
to your listeners once I finish the story,
Oh, okay.
so they can get a free digital download. And he listened to that album, and now all of a sudden he was able to travel before where he couldn't, on flying someplace to go flying to Florida or something,
Mhm. Mhm.
and being able to socially interact and rest peacefully and not have to be medicated, so to speak.
Right. I mean, there's so many applications. I mean, I can see this in in the
Yeah,
prison system. I can see it, with PTSD, with with vets.
that's
I can see it in facilities for like Alzheimer and, assisted living even, and the other part of it is that you don't have to use it just when you're feeling bad. I mean, you can
no.
also use it just like for, every day or just when you're feeling good, because what it's doing is it's opening up new neural pathways in your brain. And it's just like really a comprehensive, awesome way to heal ourselves. And I think that's the thing that I love the most. And, all the years that I've been doing energy healing and all of that, I've always felt like you just help the person help themselves, and if there was a silver bullet, I would say it would be SoundSyncTech, because all you have to do is listen to it. You don't have to believe in it. You can just listen to it and do it. So I know that we're coming to a close. Was there anything that you might want to say in closing, that we didn't cover? We did cover a lot of ground, so I really appreciate it. It's been
You
really
bet.
fun. And I want everybody to make sure that they go to your website, tedwinslow.com, right? Or soundsynctech.com, or what?
Yep, soundsynctech.com or tedwinslow.com. Actually, since the listeners have been hearing us talk about the whole time, let's have them go. They can go there and download a digital copy of Angelic Sound Healing. I've been blessed with that album so that they can listen for themselves to see what we've been talking about without even having to pay a dime. And if they just go to tedwinslow.com and go into the albums, you'll go into the store, select Angelic Sound Healing with binaural beats, you'll check out, and as you're checking out, there's going to be a place for a coupon code, and type in radio, and that will zero out your balance so that you're not putting in any credit card information. If you are, go back a step
Okay.
and find that coupon code, and it'll zero it out, and then you'll go ahead and be able to proceed checking out. It's going to ask some questions. My website gets hit millions of times. So it's keeping the bots out of it, another technology thing that we get to enjoy this day
Mm-hmm.
and age.
Mm-hmm.
And they can go ahead and download that album for free. And it's a full album. You can get the full album off of
Wow,
that
that's
there.
so generous. And especially it's so needed during this time period that we're in, and especially over the holidays and everything. So I really appreciate it. And we can also stream it on Amazon Music and Spotify, and you can find it on YouTube. And also, I wanted to, also before we close, I wanted to tell people that if you go to wellpointhypnosismethod.com, you can find a practitioner and you can experience the Wellpoint Hypnosis Method with the SoundSyncTech. So that's another thing that I highly recommend. And I know that everybody is really going to benefit from it. So I'm just really excited to be part of the family and to be on board and to really help everybody, like help the world help itself, and to really come into a new place, because I truly believe that we are in a new paradigm shift, and that it is a changing of the old guard. And that with things like SoundSyncTech and Wellpoint Hypnosis Method, there's actually solutions, to what we're being bombarded with and being faced with in these crazy times that we're living in. So thank you very much, Ted. I
Dana,
really appreciate you. I look
I
forward to
have to
coming to Colorado and visiting.
I have to jump in here and say thank you so much for all you do, for the plethora of knowledge and information that you give all of us and insight, and the podcast and connecting all of us together. So thank you for everything and your contributions for all of us vibrating at the highest vibrations that we can. So thank you, Dana.
Yes, I appreciate you. Thank you so much. And I guess the last thing I need to say is if you want to find the podcast, Metaphysical Reality Podcast will be on the YouTube channel. So thank you. This was my virgin voyage. You're my first. And I really appreciate you, Ted Winslow. And thanks for the gift for the Angelic Healing CD. And I hope everybody gets to experience SoundSyncTech because it will change your life. So namaste. Thank
Namaste.
you. Blessings be.